Young Adult Podcast.
Welcome to podcast 159.
159.
Here we are. I'm the executive pastor here at Cornerstone Church. My name is Pastor Lucas. Youth pastor at Cornerstone Church. This is Pastor Aaron.
That's right.
You can find him at Aaron Malmquist.
Oh, yeah.
You can find me at L. Forstoff. Those handles are also in the descriptions below.
Come on.
And we work at Cornerstone Church in Highland, Michigan. But there's so much more to us than just those things.
Just those job titles. That's right.
We are more than just the titles of our jobs. You've got a wife and a little girl.
That's right.
I've got a wife and 3 kids. We like things other than church, like football and the water. And that's pretty much it, though.
Yeah. Come on. You know what else has been really awesome? I've been talking about this a lot on a lot of podcasts, so I almost didn't bring it up. But I had such a great time listening to the Detroit Tigers yesterday.
Ooh.
We're recording on Tuesday.
Yeah, they had a great game last night.
They just destroyed the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah. Every inning just runs, home runs, hits and runs, baby. Let's go.
And I've been so stressed the past 2 games against Kansas City where we scored 0 runs and 1 run.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, these games are stressful.
Yeah.
And so to go out and win like that yesterday was fantastic.
That was a great game.
That was fantastic.
That was awesome.
That was my one bright spot of Detroit sports news this week. So
Frank Ragnow went off and retired. You know what's really frustrating? It gets worse.
yeah, I know.
You know what else is stupid?
What?
We still owe him millions of dollars, even though he's just deciding to retire.
I know.
So it's not like we can go out and just, we've got $10 million this year because we're not paying Frank the Tank. So let's go get ourselves a decent center. Nope, doesn't work like that. We still owe him I don't know how much. We still owe him millions. We're going to pay him. We could pay him all this year if we want to. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or we could stretch it out over the next 2 years, but either way, I mean, it's not like all of a sudden we got that cap space back. That's just frustrating. It's very frustrating. Yeah. I'm seeing this season kind of, I'm not going to say slip away because it's not true, but I'm seeing the season get harder.
Yeah.
I already had thoughts about how losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn as our coordinators was going to be hard to overcome. Mm-hmm. Then you got still people on defense are actually still injured. Mm-hmm. Some of them won't be back until really Thanksgiving time.
Right.
So that's a little bit of okay, I can work with that. It's okay. Now this.
It's rough, man.
It's rough.
That's why I decided to talk about the Tigers instead, because they were just whooping up on Chicago this week. And it was, like I said, the one bright spot.
Parker Meadows being back is a bright spot too.
It is such a bright spot.
Why does the bat look so tiny in his arms?
It's because he's so tall.
It is so strange.
He's like 6'8" or something like that.
It's like he's holding a drumstick. Like a drummer's drumstick.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like one of our drummers here at Cornerstone for our youth ministry. He's in 8th grade, so he's not a big drummer. You know what I mean? He's an 8th grader.
He's an 8th grader. He's not a big guy.
He's not a big guy yet. And so the drumsticks look bigger in his hands. It's about the same as a baseball bat in Parker Meadows' arm.
And it looks so tiny, I don't know how he gets it across the plate. It looks like it's going to come up short. Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's hilarious. I was watching the highlights.
How big is he?
I think he's 6'8". I'll figure it out right now.
6'8"? Because typically baseball players are not that big.
No.
He should be a tight end in the NFL. He chose the right sport, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's 6'5".
Let's go with 6'8". I like that. That sounds a lot better.
He's 6'5".
He's 6'8". He's a beast. Might even be 6'9".
Oh, yeah. Did you see him make that diving catch, too? It's great having Parker Meadows back.
It's great having Parker Meadows back.
Oh, yeah.
Is a part of you thinking to yourself, it'd be really cool if Frank Ragnow just kind of maybe halfway through the season unretired? Something like that. Have you thought that? I did.
I haven't thought that yet, but I'm thinking about it now.
It's possible. He might start feeling good. You know, he's rested for a while.
Coming back?
Just come on back.
Come on.
I don't know. Sad. I had a really good friend. I need to restart the story.
Okay.
Because it started with a lie.
Don't do that.
I know. When I was on staff here at church, I was running the IMA. There was a student in the youth ministry here.
Okay.
Now, we were friends, but not really. I mean, like, you know, we were as much as friends can be between a student and a staff member at church.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, he played for Michigan State. He was an offensive lineman.
Okay.
And he was really good, and he got invited to the combine. He kind of was told you'd be drafted, you know, like maybe like 4th round or something like that.
Yeah.
And he decided to not go to be done with football.
Yeah.
And the last thing I heard about him was he was going to go become a police officer.
Yeah.
And I was like flabbergasted. Whoa, you're not going to go play in the NFL? And I was told by a very reliable source that asked him the question, why aren't you going into the NFL?
Yeah.
He said, I don't want to ruin my body.
Yeah.
I've almost ruined my body.
Right.
Playing all 4 years through college. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I want to go do that. I want to like be able to walk when I'm in my 50s and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a real thing to retire because of health, but still, Frank.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't really take the sting away.
No, doesn't at all.
Doesn't.
Well, you got something for us today.
I do. I got something.
It's a mystery to me, though.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what you're going to talk about.
You did this to me a couple of weeks ago.
I do this to you all the time.
That's true. But a couple of weeks ago, you purposefully kept it from me right up until on air, and you had a bunch of notes, and I didn't have any.
I wouldn't say I had a bunch of notes. I had like 3 sentences written on a piece of paper.
Yeah, but you know, for our podcast, that's a bunch of notes.
That's a lot of notes.
If you watched a number of episodes ago with Vinny, you know.
That was really funny. You got to go back and rewatch that intro with Vinny.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
So funny. Okay, but what you actually talked about right just a second ago, how you started the story with a lie, intros perfectly into what I want to talk about.
I got this really great friend. I do not. That's not true. I know a kid. Why am I like always tempted to do that? Why are we all tempted to?
I'm definitely tempted to do the same thing. Yeah. Anyway, so I had a question that I want to propose to you, and then maybe we can kind of walk through some passages in the Word of God that to kind of hash this out a little bit between us. So, my question to you and to everybody in the audience is there anything that is impossible for God to do? Is there anything impossible for God to do?
Well, the quick answer is yes. That's the quick answer.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a lot of things that are impossible for God to do.
Oh, yeah.
So right off the bat, you think about how the Bible says God is love. And so it's impossible for God to hate us.
Right. Come on. You know, I remember being in elementary school, I think 4th grade, and there was a kid that asked me, can God do anything? And I was like, yeah, God can do anything. And then,
then he's like, got you in a trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like fourth grader, he's like, can God build a wall that he can't break through? Yeah. I was like, what does that have? That doesn't have anything to do with God, but fourth graders.
Yeah.
But now as I've gotten older, I was thinking, well, yeah, actually there is things that God can't do.
Yeah. He can't go against his character.
But I wanted to talk about this because there's a verse in the Bible, I think it's in Matthew, where Jesus is talking and he said, with man, it's impossible. He was actually talking about people getting into heaven.
Yes. Yeah, that's the context.
And he said, with man, it's impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Mm-hmm. But that context, he was talking about people getting into heaven. And I think people take that verse out of context a lot, Pastor Luke, and say, well, God can do anything, whatever he wants.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to actually show a couple of cool verses that I think that are cool.
Okay.
that talk about some of the things that actually are impossible for God to do. And then there's one verse that, well, maybe if we have some time, we'll get to about one of the things or one of the ways that, or things, I guess, I don't know, that it should be impossible for us to do. But is it always? I don't know. We'll talk about it. All right. You ready for this?
Yeah, you got the scriptures ready to go?
I got them.
All right.
I love this one. Hebrews 6:18. It's a great one. God did this so that by two unchangeable things, in which, here it is, these two unchangeable things, it is impossible for God to lie. And so we who have fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. Number one, God cannot lie.
Yeah. That's what makes when people have their eternity is decided by God.
Yeah.
It's never based out of lies and unfairness.
Yeah.
It's not an injustice.
Right.
Because God cannot lie.
Yeah.
I think that people do have a big problem with eternity, Pastor.
Oh, yeah.
They got a major problem with eternity. How can a loving God send somebody to hell? And essentially they're saying, like, he loves us so much. Why would he do that to us? So you're essentially saying you know better than God.
Yeah. Come on.
If you were in charge.
That's good.
And if you were making all the decisions, there would be no such thing as hell. And God is not loving. And he says, although the Bible says he is loving. So then, does God lie when he sends people to hell? Does he like twist things
right.
to send people away? You know?
Yeah.
I heard one great preacher say this, that God won't even have to say a single word at your judgment time. He will replay back to you your very own words, and your own words will condemn you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And God won't have to say a word.
I heard a great preacher addressing this, a great communicator. He's not a preacher, but a great communicator. And he said, basically answering that question, only good people go to heaven. And he said, the problem is that Jesus himself said that no one is good except God.
Yeah.
And
they said good teacher. And he's like, whoa. Why do you call me good? There's none good but God.
There's none good but God.
So he was like pushing back on being called good himself.
Yeah. And so this guy's like, so only good people go to heaven, but no one is good except God. And so the only way that we're ever justified before to go from bad to good is through Jesus.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's why there has to be this, the justice of God as well, because you can't get into heaven unless you're being good. I heard somebody else say this, and I thought it was fantastic. I actually heard this. I was listening to a podcast when I was working out this morning at the gym. And the guy said that saying that God could lie is the same as saying that there's a circle square.
Yeah.
He's like,
absolutely.
Grammatically, the sentence is correct, but it is physically impossible for that to exist.
Yeah. Just because we can say it grammatically correct doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. And so he's like, a circle squared, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That is, it goes against a square's nature to be circle. Like it can't happen.
I've heard a great preacher say this, and I will repeat it. And it's not from me, it's from this other person. But he said, human beings are the only created beings that go against the will of the Lord. So he gave examples. Okay. He goes, a frog will always do what a frog was created to do.
All right.
And it never rebels against the boundaries set upon it.
Right.
What do I mean by that? Well, it will spend most of its life in the swamp.
Right. Yeah.
Eating flies, hanging out with other frogs.
Yeah.
That's it.
But
a human being, though, will routinely rebel against what it is created to be and do.
Man, that's crazy. That's good.
And we are the liars.
Yeah.
We, not God.
Not God.
Not God.
Not God.
So what does he do then with the creation, who is supposed to live within boundaries, just like all of his other creation?
Yeah.
What does God then do with a rebellious creation? And by the way, the only creation that rebels
As humans.
is humans. So what is God supposed to do with that? And he's come up with all these different systems to respond to a rebellious people.
Come on.
God never had any intentions of hell.
Yeah.
Never. And hell didn't exist until Lucifer rebelled.
Come on. Yeah.
And so then he created hell.
yeah.
And actually what God created was a ball of dirt, and Lucifer and 1/3 of the angels that rebelled with Lucifer were sent to live inside the middle of this ball of dirt. That's called hell.
Yeah.
And that's where he lived. But that didn't exist until Lucifer rebelled.
Right.
So
Come
God's
on.
a creator, and he cannot kill
Yeah.
because it's against who he is.
Yeah.
All this stuff makes sense when you start understanding the character of God.
Yeah.
So this is where Lucifer is sent to, because God can't kill. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to kill Lucifer, but he's going to send him to a place, an empty place, a desert place,
Yeah.
to live out forever.
Yeah.
And then God creates people, and God does not intend for people to rebel. Mm-hmm. And here we have Adam and Eve in absolute perfection,
Yeah.
and still wanted more.
Still rebelled.
That reveals the heart of humanity.
Yeah.
Doesn't reveal anything wrong with God.
Yeah. Come on.
God gave them absolutely everything they needed, walked with them in the cool of the evening,
Yeah.
communicated with them constantly, even though there was nothing to, there was no requests,
Yeah.
because everything was
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh yeah, which I love. That's so crazy because people will say, I'm sure you've heard this, that man, if God would speak to me, like if I
Yeah.
could hear the voice of God, if I could see a miracle, if God would do this for me, then I would believe and serve Him wholeheartedly. God literally walked with Adam and Eve in paradise, in absolute perfection, and they still rebelled against God.
They experienced exactly what you're demanding from God, and it wasn't enough.
And it wasn't enough.
And the same thing would happen with Jesus. Oh, do a miracle, do a miracle.
Yeah.
Jesus said, the only miracle I'll give you is a sign of Jonah.
Yeah, come on.
What does that mean, Jesus? It means that I'm going to go into the belly for 3 days, but I will rise again
Yeah.
and come out.
Yeah.
And you still won't believe.
You still won't believe.
Still won't be enough.
Man.
So what does God do then with a rebellious people that he loves, who hates him?
He gives them away.
He does. He gives them away, and they still reject that way.
Man.
And the goodness of God, the greatness of God is not seen in humanity.
No.
The worst of God is seen in humanity.
Yeah.
We do not get the proper picture of who God is.
Yeah.
I got a great question for you.
Okay.
If God is love, and God is great, and God is awesome, and God's created, streets of gold where he lives, but we're living in this dumpster fire down here.
Yeah.
Right? This is very... What's with all this evil everywhere if God is so good?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question.
It is a good question.
And here's another question.
Okay.
To those people who think this. There's so many people out there who think this.
100%.
And can I be open and honest?
Yeah.
I've thought these thoughts before.
Yeah, absolutely. So have I.
When I was younger and immature.
Oh, yeah.
And didn't quite understand and didn't have all the knowledge.
Yeah.
I was like, man, God is good.
Right.
What is this over here?
Yeah.
You think about genocide and just craziness and disease.
Yeah.
It doesn't deserve all that. Oh, sheesh. Okay, so why isn't God doing anything about it?
Right.
So here's a great question for those who think that. You don't think this, but there's those out there who think this. Let's just say right now, exactly what you believe is true. That God isn't real. Mm-hmm. He doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Okay.
Okay? So then, Whose responsibility is all this evil?
It's humanity's.
Okay. Great answer. Because that's the right answer.
Yeah.
You don't believe in God, but you're mad at Christians because they believe in God. What's all this evil doing here? Why isn't your God doing anything about it? But I don't believe in your God. What's with all this evil? Whose responsibility is the evil if God doesn't exist? Oh, well, maybe it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
It is our responsibility, even if God does exist.
Yeah, that's right.
Because God didn't send any of this evil.
Right.
It was found in the heart of man.
Yeah.
And it grows darker and darker day by day, it feels like.
Yeah. That's exactly what Paul wrote when he wrote in Romans 1, right? But man being evil, not God, but man being evil chose to serve the creation rather than the creator. And then so what did God do? What was the wrath of God in Romans 1? It was that God chose to give man over to his own evil desire. And that's what that evil is. It wasn't God saying, okay, I'm going to send evil to the earth now.
No.
He's saying, listen, you chose this. You rejected me. And so because I'm going to let you chase your own desire, and this is where it ends up, and it ends up in evil every time.
Yeah. There was a street preacher on a college campus. I forget his name. I wish I remembered his name.
Okay.
And there was a crowd listening to him speak. And he had an open mic where anybody could come up and ask him questions. And this one young woman, she's a student, she asked him a question. She says, what are the requirements to get into heaven?
Okay.
That's a pretty good question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
She was actually really genuine in this question.
Yeah.
It didn't feel, what's the word I want to use? Like gotcha or anything like that. It was like, what are the requirements to get into heaven?
Yeah.
And
Sounds like the rich young ruler.
What does it sound like?
The rich young ruler.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the Bible.
Yeah.
It does. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it does. And he answers it really quickly with one word. He goes, perfection. And then she goes, well, how do you get in then? And he goes, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And then she starts thinking. You could tell she's thinking. And she's like, Jesus? He's like, you're getting it.
Yeah.
You're figuring it out.
Come on.
And think about that, Pastor Aaron. Only perfect people allowed. Mm-hmm. Are you going to make it?
No.
Neither am I. I'm not going to make it. Do you think, here's a question. Do you think people who think they're perfect are going to make it?
No.
But what if they tried really, really hard, like all the time, and man, they were good at it even?
Yeah.
What about those people, Pastor Aaron?
If you've broken one letter of the law, you've broken the entire thing. That's what Jesus said. One mistake, one white lie, one bad motive, one even like virtue signaling for the sake of your own glory.
The rich young ruler had a lot of virtue signaling going on.
Yeah. And even that even somebody else doesn't see, but it's just an attitude of your heart. Well, broke a letter of the law.
Yeah.
Guilty of the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. I think we got to be very careful, Pastor Aaron, to kind of prop ourselves up even as an example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go somewhere. You ready?
We got a few minutes left on the podcast.
I seen a short on YouTube the other day, and it was this pastor. And I didn't know who it was, but he was preaching to look like a pretty large crowd at a church, and he was talking about how he had a vision, and Jesus apologized to him, and was asking for forgiveness in this vision.
Wow.
And he was using it as an example for everybody that man, sometimes we need to forgive Jesus. And I just stopped and I was looking at my wife, I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
Because, I mean, there's so many things wrong with that theology, but
Yeah.
when you were talking about propping yourself up, like if you have propped yourself up to the point where you think that Jesus is asking you for forgiveness,
What the?
you have essentially put yourself in the seat of God.
I wonder how you get there.
And that's a terrible place to try to be, because that's exactly what I think that's what the Pharisees were doing and the religious people when Jesus was on the earth, and he called them the brood of vipers because listen, you're putting a burden on the people that is so heavy you won't even lift a finger to help them. And he was condemning that, and I think that's exactly what this guy was doing.
How do you get to the point in your walk with the Lord as a Christian where something has happened and Jesus has to ask for forgiveness?
I don't know.
What is the situation?
I have no idea. I watched a 60-second short on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah.
Didn't listen to the whole message. I was
That's
like,
crazy.
I don't need to listen to this guy anymore.
No,
But,
man,
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We've got to figure out how to do this thing. how to do it well.
Yeah.
We've got to figure it out.
All right. I'm going to read these last two verses to you. We're running out of time, but I think these verses will encourage you and hopefully encourage everybody else out there, because it's impossible for God to lie. And now check this out. I love this verse. Acts 2:24. This is Peter talking, day of Pentecost. He just gets filled with the Holy Spirit. He's preaching to a crowd. And he said, but God raised him, he's talking about Jesus, from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death. Are you ready for this phrase? I love this. Because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. If there was ever a way to live forever, if there was ever a way to be reunited with the God who spoke everything into existence, this perfect, completely loving God that we've been talking about, it's through the person that it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him.
Yeah.
And that was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And then this is how we get into, I don't know if good standing with God is the right phrase, but it might be. You can help me out with this.
Sure.
But then Hebrews 11:6 says this, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. There is a God out there. It's impossible for him to lie. It's impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Satan tried, killed him, came back from the dead 3 days later.
Yeah.
Beat death, hell, and the grave. And now there's a way for us to get into right standing with him, for us to be made perfect through him, for us to be made good through him, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And it's simply through faith.
Yeah.
Through believing that he is who he said he is. And I don't know about everybody, but that actually encourages me when I can realize that the one thing that Jesus is looking at my heart and saying, does Aaron have faith to believe what I said? Yeah. Because without it, it's impossible. If I have all of the good works, if I could, like Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, if I speak in tongues of men and angels and all this stuff, but I don't have any faith, I don't actually believe that he said who he said he was, it's impossible to please him.
I was reading in Acts today too. I forget which chapter, and the sons of Sceva.
Oh yeah,
how they went around they had seen Paul and
was it Barnabas then?
I can't remember. It was Paul or somebody casting out demons and doing great things. They're like, oh, that's fantastic. And so they started kind of going around to the same thing, and they came across a guy who had a lot of demons in him, and the demon talks to him and says, I know Paul and I know Apollos, but
I know Jesus.
Yeah, and I don't know who you are. And he the demons just beat the sons of Sceva up. Yeah. And tore off their clothes even and embarrassed them, and they were beat up and thrown out of the house. And we've got to be very careful, Pastor Aaron, that we build a relationship with Jesus. Focus on that. And less effort with great exploits and great works.
Come on. That's so good.
You read it. And he's a rewarder of those who do what?
Diligently seek him.
Oh, he's not a reward. Some people though, Pastor Aaron, are trying to get rewards based upon effort and sacrifice.
Yeah. Come on. Dude, that's good. We can do a whole other podcast.
And they're getting mad at God because they're like, God, I put in all this time.
Yeah, come on.
He's like, I don't even know who you are. You've never even talked to me before.
Man.
It's like the sons of Sceva.
Man, that's so good.
That is another podcast.
We could do a whole other podcast right there.
Yeah, we could. But we're not. Well, we might one day. We're not right now, right?
We're running out of time.
We're out of time, actually.
We're out of time.
Out of time, audience. Oh, I hope that. Hope this was a good one. This was a good one.
I had fun with this one.
Yeah, me too. Those are good questions.
Yeah, that's
great
good.
questions.
That's good.
And how do you describe this podcast? This was since you are the one who introduced the topic. Let me.
All right, go for it.
Describe this podcast as one who was the meal was served to.
Yeah.
This was light. This was intriguing. It was like a pot pie, but when I cut it open, instead of a chicken pot pie, it was like a steak pot pie, and I didn't expect it, and it was really good. It's like a roast pot pie.
Yeah, dude, I love roast pot pie.
That's what this was. That's what this was. That's what it was. There's like no denying it either. You can't argue it.
Why would I argue it? Couldn't.
You can't. There's no other options. This is the only thing we got. All right, everybody. Great to be with you, audience.
Bye.
Catch you on the next one.
Youth and Young Adult Podcast. Youth and Young Adult Podcast. Youth and Young Adult Podcast.